More than 600,000 people go missing in the United States every year. Some are found and reunited with loved ones. Others are never seen again. In the hours and days after they disappear, we see their faces and hear their names. But do we remember them? Sometimes years go by without any updates. Tips stop being reported, detectives retire, and their cases go cold. That's where we come in. This is Forgotten, Wisconsin Cold Cases, and I'm your host, Cassandra Cepeda. We're a podcast on a mission to remember those who went missing and still haven't been found. Right now in Wisconsin, 185 people are considered missing. Every month, our show will open the file of a missing person, taking you back in time to when that person went missing. Not only will you hear me ask questions that have gone left unanswered for years or sometimes decades, we'll try to get answers from people who were there or whose responsibility it is now to solve the case. We know you're busy and don't have hours to dedicate to a show, so we will pack it all in under 15 minutes. And just maybe, you are the key to bringing them home, or have that missing piece of information that police and loved ones have been searching for. So, join us on the first Thursday of every month and at WSAW.com as we do what we can to remember the forgotten.
It's the not knowing that drives you the most crazy, the not knowing what happened. I just thought, wow, okay, this is, something's wrong.
As of right now, everybody's a person of interest.
Oh, I still have hope that we can find the answers.
March 6th, 2020, a missed ride to work raised the first red flag into the disappearance of a young man from Waushara County that has left his family devastated and determined to find the truth. I'm Cassandra Cepeda, and this is Forgotten, John Jake Morgan, waiting for answers. March 8th was a typical Sunday morning for Michelle Zartner. She was living in Arizona with her sister Christine Ernst, far away from the lingering winter in Wisconsin. It's where she once lived and where her two children currently call home. It was typical, until she got a message from her son's father. He said no one had seen their son, John Jake Morgan, for 2 days.
So I started reaching out to some of his friends, the person who had reported to his father that they spoke to him late Thursday, and that she hadn't been able to get a hold of him since then.
This wasn't typical for John. The people in his life say he was always in contact with them, was consistent on social media, and was a good friend who wouldn't just ghost them.
Well, as a son, he was a great son. Crazy at times. He was always in sports and very active throughout everything that he did. Being a mom of a teenager going into, early 20s, we had our normal family challenges that you have as your children are growing up, and but he is a great person with a great heart and always willing to help other people.
He was good at helping other people, maybe not as good at helping himself.
That was John's aunt, Christine. She says as soon as they heard about John's disappearance, they went to work. They began calling friends in Wisconsin, making posts on Facebook, and doing whatever they could while being in Arizona. But at the end of the day, they felt hopeless, which is why the pair booked 2 tickets to Wisconsin within a matter of days.
And so we got there on Thursday. We met with his friend who initially told his dad that she couldn't get a hold of him, and she was panicking.
Christine is talking about John's friend. We'll call her Kim. Kim is described as a very close friend to John, but it's unclear if they had a romantic relationship. Here's how Captain Detective Nick Traeger with the Waupaca County Sheriff's Office describes their connection.
I don't know if I'd classify as a partner, but she gave him a lot of rides to work and back. She also provided him a cell phone so that they could communicate. So I can't say officially they were dating, however, they seemed the closest. And this female was supposed to give John a ride to work Friday morning, and he never contacted her.
This piece of information is very important because John didn't drive. I think this is the right time to introduce the timeline of what we know about John's last accounted for hours. On Thursday, March 5th, John finished his shift at the A&W in Watoma around 5:30 in the evening and got a ride to his home in Waiawega from Kim. Cell phone records show they texted and talked on the phone until about 11:30 that night. It's also the last time he made a status update on Facebook. About an hour later, he was picked up from his home by a former classmate who we're gonna call Haley. Investigators believe the two made it back to Haley's home in King, which is a small community just west of Waupaca. At approximately 2:30 a.m. on Friday, John and Haley are seen on surveillance video of a gas station in the Waupaca area. Police believe the pair went back to Haley's home after. I know I'm naming a lot of towns and times, but I think it's important to understand how far away they are from one another. If you are a visual person like me, we included a map at wsaw.com to make it a little easier to understand. At 3:28 a.m., John's phone shows he made a call to Kim to set up a ride for work later that morning. About 45 minutes later, he sent a final text. At 5:15, he received another text, but that one was never opened. His phone last pinged in the King area at 9 a.m. But John never showed up for his 10 a.m. shift at the A&W and never collected his paycheck.
So the female friend that was going to give him a ride lives in the general area. However, they communicate by phone, and he never came to her house. He never contacted her for a ride to go to work or anything like that, which is very unusual.
Two pretty big red flags. During our interview with police, they were clear in saying that John was with Haley for several hours. What's not entirely clear is if they were alone. According to detectives, they believe another person was at the house at some point. However, because of a lack of cooperation, they can't confirm if that person had any contact with John or anyone else was there. Haley did tell police that John walked out of her home at 8 in the morning, and that was the last time she saw him. A quick Google search estimates it would have taken him nearly 5 hours to make the walk back home, and his job is even farther. It's nearly 24 miles, making it an 8-hour trek by foot. In the months following, the sheriff's office was granted a search warrant to investigate the home where John was last seen on County Highway Q. It's a small home in a touristy area next to a popular bar. Traeger says the state crime lab went through the house and did some minor digging outside of the home. But when I asked if cadaver dogs were used, here's what he said.
They did, and I can't speak on what was found or not found.
Through my months of putting this series together, I've learned that it is completely normal for authorities to keep certain information private and not share it with the public. I understand that it can help keep the integrity of the case, but I also understand how frustrating that can be for those on the outside looking in, which often leaves room for the rumor mill to start running. And I want to take a moment to clear up a couple of them. The first being assumptions after the search in King at Haley's home.
The belief that John was hit over the head with a shovel and dismembered, I don't believe is accurate.
In terms of evidence, the detective said they never found John's phone and wouldn't say what crews found during their search warrant in King. Whatever it was, obviously, it alone isn't enough to solve this crime. So I asked him, what will it take?
Cooperation. I believe that we have a good idea on what happened, but there are a couple people that need to come forward and tell the truth and cooperate.
For complete transparency on my end, I think it's important to point out that John had a history with drugs, and Traeger is fairly certain that played a major role in what ultimately happened to him.
I think this was an accident that people got scared and didn't know what to do and did not want law enforcement involved.
Yes, we believe that too. I believe that day that he didn't leave on his own.
For years, his mom says John battled his addiction and was on probation at the time of his disappearance.
Well, at first, I think that was part of one of the reasons why the police were a little hesitant to look further into it, thinking that, these people, be gone for days and no one hears from them.
But she says John was on a road to sobriety, even if some days were more challenging than others. Since John was technically living in Waushara County when he went missing, the investigation was originally led by police there, but it was eventually handed over to Opaka County since King was the last place he was known to be. Since Detective Traeger has taken over, he says drugs continue to be a challenge when it comes to working this case.
Parts of it make it complicated. Trying to speak with individuals that don't always like law enforcement or have been incarcerated don't always cooperate the most.
I asked if John might have left the area because of his past with the law. Maybe he was running from something or someone.
We knew John had an active probation warrant, so we weren't sure if he was trying to avoid being arrested on his warrant. But ultimately, we didn't get anything that provided us information as to where he would have gone.
His mom says, yes, John had his issues, but whatever trouble he got in, he always dealt with the consequences, regardless of what they were, and knows she would have helped in whatever way she could.
I would get a phone call, and I've had the same phone number for years, and so it's like, no, if something happened, I know that he knows my number, he knows I will answer the call.
Michelle doesn't have any plans to change that number either, not until they get the answers they so desperately deserve.
I think Michelle and I have often talked that we're never going to give up until we find out what happened to him.
Do it for the family. The family is absolutely crushed. They want closure. They know Jake's past. They know his difficulties and struggles, but they also know he was a great person, and Jake doesn't deserve this.
Over 3 years, Detective Traeger says his office has received more than 200 reports and continues to receive tips weekly. John's family is also offering a $10,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest of anybody involved in Jake's disappearance, or for information that leads to finding him or the location of his body. But investigators say that information will likely only come from a very select group of people.
I think it's a very small circle, and the reason why I believe that is because of the small town, and when something big happens in a small town, at some point somebody knows something credible, and there have been numerous interviews throughout the last 3 years, and there's not been much credible information provided to us.
From those particular people?
From the people in the community that have heard rumors or heard information.
John is a brother, a friend, and a son. His loved ones deserve to know what happened regardless of the decisions he's made in the past.
Please just think of if this were your child or your niece or nephew or cousin or brother, sister, please just, even if you're afraid, do it anonymously. We just want to find him.
And John, if you're listening, I don't know what kind of demons have haunted you, but you should know that your family is still looking for you, and they love you. You have not been forgotten. John was 22 years old when he disappeared. Today, he'd be 26. His ears and tongue are both pierced. He has a small scar believed to be on his left eyebrow, and there are photos of his leg tattoos at WSAW.com. If you know something about John's disappearance, now is the time to come forward. Please call the Wapaka County Sheriff's Office at 715-258-4466 or make an anonymous tip through the P3 app available for Apple and Android devices online or at www.p3tips.com.
Whoever helped him is still out there.
So we need to find her.
She doesn't deserve to get forgotten.
October 3rd, 2020, friends of a Clark County woman say she was scared for her life, being stalked by her ex-boyfriend and father of her son. More than 3 years later, her killer is sitting behind bars, but she is still missing. I'm Cassandra Cepeda, and this is Forgotten, Cassandra Aon, Unfinished Justice. Breakups can be difficult. Most people talk to their BFFs about what went wrong over a glass of wine or a pint of ice cream, or two. For others, it's the dramatic move of getting bangs. For 27-year-old Cassandra Aon, it was getting in shape.
When she had moved back home, that year she lost a lot of weight, got super fit, was running and walking, working out every day, and she looked amazing.
Amanda Reith has been friends with Cassandra since grade school. The two were neighbors and continued to be friends through high school and all of life's milestones.
In 2013, she actually was my roommate when she found out she was pregnant.
Cassandra had a little boy with her then on and off again boyfriend, Jesus Contreras Perez. In 2020, he was 40 and Cassandra was 27. The pair started dating sometime in 2011 or 2012. And to say their relationship was complicated would be a severe understatement. A detailed criminal complaint paints a pretty dark picture filled with mistrust and abuse, both physically and emotionally.
She was very private about a lot of stuff and wouldn't really talk about a lot of the stuff going on, but I knew he had a temper. I don't know. She never told me if he laid a hand on her or anything, but I know things have gotten broken and stuff, so it was, I don't know, I didn't think it was a very good relationship.
She's not alone. Another friend of Cassandra's told police Jesus had left her with bruises and was cheating on her. He told police Jesus's jealousy eventually led to threats to hurt her or hurt others she was hanging out with. Then, theft. In September of 2020, Cassandra's phone and a friend's phone were stolen from her car at a Quick Trip.
She made a report about that, and while the cops were taking that report, she had asked them about a restraining order then, because she was like, I know who did it. And they said, oh, you don't have enough proof.
As I listened to Amanda, she was honest. She did not approve of Cassandra and Jesus's relationship. She wanted her friend to be happy, to be cared for, to be loved, the way Cassandra cared for others. I asked Amanda, what kind of friend was Cassandra? Here's what she said.
Sassy, very funny, just loving, caring. She's like the friend that would cook for you or bring you over a cake or something she baked. She was very caring and thoughtful that way.
One day in early October, Amanda decided to return the favor, keeping in mind Cassandra's new healthy lifestyle.
I made her a healthy snack that was still chocolatey and stuff, and she stopped by and picked it up. And then she was talking about how excited she was to go to this party this weekend, and I was like, all your coworkers, I'm not going to know anyone, but I'll go with you.
It was the last time she would get to hang out with her best friend. October 2nd, 2020 was a Friday. Cassandra had a shift at Marathon Cheese in Marathon City, which is about a 45-minute drive from her home in Loyal. After work and around 11 that night, she traveled south to pick up a friend in Unity. To make it a little easier to follow, I'm going to call him Friend A. Later, the pair stopped at a gas station around 11:22, then drove to Marshfield to hang out at Friend B's home, arriving at 12:11 a.m. I know there's a lot of traveling involved, so we've included a map at WSAW.com. While at Friend B's house, the three made plans to go shopping in Eau Claire on Saturday. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Friend A and Cassandra left Marshfield to go back to Unity. That was around 2:45, 3 a.m. Fast forward 1 hour. Friend A says he watched Cassandra get in her car, and drive away at about 3:45 or 4 o'clock in the morning. That was the last time anyone would ever report seeing Cassandra alive. The next day, as planned, friend A and B called and messaged her, but all of them went unanswered. Remember, she had plans to go shopping, and later that night, she was supposed to go to a party with Amanda.
So that Saturday, I had messaged her, and I was like, "Are you still wanting to go tonight?" And she didn't respond, and it was on Messenger, so it had like the little delivery thing, and it never delivered to her phone. So I was like, well, maybe she's already there and she doesn't have service, or maybe her phone's off and she's sleeping. And then the next morning, I noticed it still hadn't delivered, so I sent her another message and said, "I'm worried." And it still didn't deliver. I drove by her house and saw her car wasn't home. So then that's when I reached out to her mom and asked if she'd seen her, and she said no. And I was like, "Can you call the police?"
Cassandra's mom and stepdad called police to report her missing.
Our detective division had conducted the investigation in the case, and I assisted to oversee the overall investigation.
That's Detective Kerry Kern with the Clark County Sheriff's Office. His office was assisted by the State Division of Criminal Investigation, Department of Justice, and Marathon County. Pretty early on, it was clear Cassandra was in trouble.
There's no indication that she had just left on her own or disappeared.
She had a busy social life, friends and family who loved her, a son who she would do anything for, and a job she really enjoyed. She wouldn't just walk away.
It was unlike her to just up and leave and not tell anybody where she was going.
On Sunday, October 4th, police started interviewing the last people who were with Cassandra and retracing her movements. Police say they drove the same routes she did the night before and didn't see any evidence of a possible crash, thinking maybe Cassandra got into an accident going home. They also learned after speaking with friends A and B that the whole night they were together, Cassandra was freaked out. They say she was constantly shutting off lights, checking out windows, and told them her ex-boyfriend Jesus had even followed her to work. Unfortunately, this wasn't news to Amanda. She had seen firsthand just how frightened Cassandra was of Jesus.
That weekend before, I was over at her house, and she was telling me about how she was scared, and like she was always constantly like looking out of her windows, like scared, like he was out there watching her. And she told me he had made threats to her about how he could make her disappear and no one would ever find her. And she didn't know what to do. We had talked about like a restraining order. She said that she had talked to a cop and he said that she didn't have enough proof. And so she didn't know what to do. I'd gotten her pepper spray, but she said she didn't feel comfortable using it. She didn't know how to use it.
Monday afternoon, police went to Jesus's work. He worked on a farm and did some vet work at Johnson Creek Dairy in Mosinee. His boss told police Jesus lived on the property, and Cassandra had too until the two broke up a few weeks prior. When police were there, his boss said Jesus went into town to run an errand, but that she expected him back in a few hours. However, if police were suspicious of Jesus before, the heat really turned up when his boss called police on Tuesday saying Jesus never came back to the farm and that it was unusual for him. Instead, cell phone records place him in Minnesota and Iowa. And I'm afraid I don't know any more about that. It's not because I don't want to tell you, it's because I really don't know. And the sheriff's office won't elaborate. Here's why.
There are a lot of things that our agency is keeping close to the vest for the integrity of the ongoing investigation, as this case is still open and she is still missing. And we're still actively conducting follow-up on this case.
A criminal complaint says it wasn't until later Tuesday that police pulled him over in Mosinee, driving a maroon Ford Explorer that he had recently bought from a friend. A vehicle with a similar description would later be identified as being seen at the mobile home park where Cassandra was last seen leaving Unity on October 3rd. The same vehicle was seen on surveillance video at Cassandra's job during her last shift, and about 4 hours later, a guy wearing the same clothes he was wearing was seen walking through the parking lot. A deep dive in Jesus' Google history revealed at the end of September, he had searched for things like how to make a silencer. Any digital footprint of Cassandra's went silent the night she was last seen, and the last banking data was recorded during her stop at a gas station on October 3rd. So by now, I think you can see where this is headed. On May 21st, 2021, a year later, Jesus was charged with stalking. 1 month after that, the county added first-degree murder and hiding a corpse. Following a 5-day trial in June of 2022, a jury found him guilty on all counts. He's currently serving a life sentence in the Green Bay Correctional Institution. Now, you might think, that's it. Case closed. But you'd be wrong.
Because she is missing and there could potentially be other suspects out there, it's still an open, active case.
Clark County District Attorney Melissa Inlow is quoted saying, "Although a life sentence is justice for Cassandra and her family, we will continue to search for Cassandra and Mr. Contreras Perez's accomplices." I asked what evidence they had to suggest more people played a part in Cassandra's disappearance, but Captain Kern declined to answer.
I can't answer what we are currently working on or what we are looking into, just because of the sensitivity of the case and the leads that we're working on. Divulging that could be detrimental to the case.
But when I asked Amanda, she didn't hesitate.
He can't drive 2 vehicles. He had to have someone at least drop him off there or drive her vehicle. I think he got in her car when she was at her friend's house and was waiting in there because he had an extra key fob. So I'm thinking he was in her car, and she always had the dome lights off when you'd open the car door. I hated it because I always had to turn my flashlight on to try to find my stuff whenever I'd leave. And so I know she always had her dome light off, so it'd be so easy for him to hide in the back seat or in the trunk and just pop the back seat down. And I think that's what he did. From there, no one knows.
But that's not true. Someone knows what happened, or at least pieces of information that could help investigators learn the truth. The sheriff's office hasn't talked to Jesus since he started his sentence. And honestly, I don't think he'd help even if they did ask. He's currently appealing the court's ruling and denies being responsible for Cassandra's death. But maybe someone listening right now knows something.
Just think of her son. He deserves closure. Her family deserves closure. We deserve to bring her home so she can get laid to rest peacefully.
Which means now is the time to come forward. It's never too late to tell what you know, and Cassandra's family deserves the truth, the whole truth.
I want her son to grow up and not remember how much of a loving person she was. And how much she cared.
I don't think there's a chance in this world that Cassandra's loved ones would let that happen. Cassandra, you have not and will not be forgotten. Cassandra Aon is described as a Hispanic female, 5'4" and 185 pounds. She drives a 2015 black Chevy Impala with Wisconsin license plates of AHZ 2509. Cassandra was last seen wearing a black long-sleeve shirt, blue jeans, and brown boots. We actually have a picture of her from that day on our website. Go check it out. If you have any information about this case, you are asked to call the Clark County Sheriff's Office at 715-743-3157. And if you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence, there is help. Call the women's community for 24/7 confidential help at 715-842-7323. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or text START to 88788.